Two microphones.
We'll go ahead and call the county commission meeting of January 23rd to order. We're going to start with a moment of silent reflection, followed by an invocation by Pastor Chris Drennan of the Grace Baptist Church. And then we'll have the pledge by Commissioner Fleischer.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Hart, I don't see the pastor. Will you be happy to stand in? Thank you.
Good morning. Father God in heaven, we just want to thank you for another day. Thank you for waking us up this morning. Thank you for this board and all the, I'm going to say the accessories that go with this board. Thank you, Lord, and use them for your glory. And Father God, we just going, this year is a year of increase for Indian River County. Whatever we do, Father God, we're going to ask that abundance come upon this county. That, Father God, we'll have more than enough in resources to do the tasks of the people. And then, Father God, I'm going to ask that we spread some of that wealth continuously in affordable housing and especially for the homeless, Father God. Let us find an avenue of where we can be able to help our less fortunate individuals. In the name of Jesus, we pray. And every soul that love the Lord will say, amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the greatest nation on earth, the United States of America, home of the free because of the brave. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all.
All right, commissioners. Is there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Commissioner Ehrman, I think you wanted to,
If we could move 14A1 and 15B1 to the, maybe after the consent or whatever you would like to, move it forward. Because I will have to leave around 11 o'clock or so for
Okay.
another appointment.
okay. That's fine with me. Anybody else have anything?
Move to approve as amended?
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is going to be proclamations and presentations. We have a proclamation recognizing African-American pioneer Ernie James Greer that will be presented by Commissioner Fleischer.
And I would love the opportunity to do that. And Madam Chair, was proud and honored to have that opportunity, but I do not see Ernie Greer here. He's probably out photographing something for the greater good of the community. And should he come, could we reserve the right to
Bring that
present
up.
it when he comes back?
Of course.
If he does attend. We've already presented the proclamation at the Martin Luther King Day dinner, but I don't see him here, so
Okay.
if we can do that
Of
then,
course.
it would be greatly appreciated.
That would be fantastic. All right, there's no minutes, informational items. And then we'll move on to consent. Anybody need to pull anything from the consent agenda?
Madam Chair, I'd like to pull 8AB.
Madam Chair, I'd like to pull 8S.
All right, hold on one second. 8AB,
Sierra?
F8S. All right. Anybody from the public wishing to pull anything from consent? Seeing none,
Madam Chair, move approval as amended.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Commissioner Moss, 8S.
Yes, 8S is, 8S is the guidebook, actually, for the Children's Services Advisory Committee, and I wanted to thank the staff. That's Ms. Cindy Emerson, and the people working with her. They've done a great job. First, they had to unearth the guidebook. It dates back to 1997. Then they updated it, did a wonderful job with that. My favorite part of it is that we are now offering professional development classes, and this is for any nonprofit. The nonprofit does not have to be receiving CSAC funding. I attended the one on January 17th, which was for budget planning, for performance accountability. It was very well done, very robust. Everyone was clamoring for more. They wanted it to go longer. Ms. Emerson's in the audience. Thank you very much for that. And there's one coming up on March 13th from 9:30 to 10:30 a.m., and that's right across the street where you get your driver's licenses. That's Building B. And the topic is, this is for any nonprofit, storytelling with data, creating compelling narratives. So thank you very much, and with that, I will move to approve.
All right, there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And with that, we will move on to 8AB. Commissioner Lohr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you know, you recently appointed me to the SHIP team, which is very informative, and I actually had my first meeting last Thursday. The one thing I was thinking about in the vein of affordable housing, the statute allows us to have SHIP dollars pertaining to mobile homes. Some years ago, probably in the 90s, this started in 93, some years ago, this board decided to exclude mobile homes from any of those dollars. We've got over 5,500 mobile homes in the county, and I just thought it'd be interesting to bring this up and chat about it and see if this board wanted to include mobile homes in the future.
What's y'all?
This is just for repairs, and mind you, no mobile home manufactured before 1994 could be utilized for SHIP dollars. This is for emergency repairs for our seniors, our veterans, and the like.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Believe it or not, we're used to dealing with hurricanes, but a tornado went through mobile homes developments, and that was in the South County on my side of the street, and we couldn't help them for that reason. So I would, and at the time, staff was not favorable toward a change, but now the staff has changed. Perhaps that has changed as well. So I'd be in favor of that, and thank you for bringing it up.
Let's see, Chris is here. If Chris wants to say a few words.
Excuse me for a second, let me catch my breath. Yeah, so we had worked on this LHAP for about a year now, going back through AHAC and all the recommendations, and also seeing what other counties were doing, plus also seeing what the Affordable Housing Conference was showing. So it's been a constructed effort between all our partners and all our non-for-profits, and taking in all the information for everybody.
Well, Madam Chair, I was just thinking that in light of everything we're doing in the county for affordable housing, what seems to be happening is lot rent is going up for our seniors and others. And I'm not saying there's going to be a lot of candidates for this, but we do have, as Commissioner Moss knows, a very well-oiled screening process. I don't think it's going to be a tremendous amount, but I think it's something we should be able to offer our seniors.
What would the process be?
The process would probably remain the same as far as a mobile home versus a house that sits on a lot that's owned by the owner. The difference here is that a mobile home is permitted through the Division of Motor Vehicles. You cannot put a mortgage on it. You have to put a lien against the property, just like you would put a lien against a car when you buy it on credit. So we have had 2 instances when we did do SHIP loans with mobile homes where we had to file an action to clear our lien and sell the mobile home because it comes to us as the first lien holder, just like a car would when you abandon a car. So it's a very simple process. It's not very complicated at all. I agree that there's probably great need in the community that mobile homes are looking like they may be the next type of affordable housing or a type of affordable housing. So as long as you know there's not a mortgage, it's a lien involved, I'm fine with it.
And I was involved with the SHIP program in the early 2000s, and I will say that it was history then as far as the modular homes, not mobile homes. And two of the points were that they were registered as, through the tax collector as vehicles, and that was one element. And then the other element was that most of the damage that gets sustained, and specifically we saw it in 2004, was the awnings. And they were substantial. Basically, the sheets of aluminum on posts. And the damage was very significant. So I think there should be a dividing line between awnings or accessories and homes. I think that would be probably the best application for going forward to ensure that we can apply SHIP funds to residents as opposed to awnings and accessories.
And I can speak a little bit more on the history. So we did provide aid. After the hurricanes, the LHAP was changed to provide aid for mobile homes. When doing so, it was seen through the program that it became cost inefficient for the program because mobile homes aren't meant to last as long as single-family homes are and designed to the Florida Building Code. It was the same reoccurring issues that were happening on the mobile homes. So at the time, after the program was finished with that LHAP, the board chose not to go forward because it was a cyclical process of fixing the same problems at the same mobile homes. So it's just something to be aware of, that it can happen again with the same fixes happening because they're not made to withstand, 30-plus years.
Ironically, and something we observed during 2004 was that while modular homes had a significant awning damage, the homes themselves did not sustain the damage that the stick and brick and the mortar homes experienced because they were pliant as opposed to rigid. And they went with some of the pressure of the winds, and there was far less home damage than when in a conventional home.
So,
I could address that quickly. I'm sorry, Madam Chairman, go ahead.
Sure.
As far as repairing awnings, I don't think SHIP repairs awnings unless it's a enclosed structure that's used as a living room or bedroom or something like that. If it's just a porch and an awning, I don't think you're going to qualify for a SHIP loan. It has to be something structural as far as a roof that's protecting a living area, used living area.
That's correct.
so I have just some clarification questions. Commissioner Laura, you're suggesting to add mobile homes or modular homes to the emergency repair program?
Correct.
Just that one, not some of the other ones? Okay. And then secondly, for staff, when does this LHAP have to be submitted? And is that something that we can do? I think Commissioner Laura's question is, can we do that now, or would that be something we would have to do in next year's LHAP?
So we could do it now. It does have to be submitted and approved by May through the actual state. So if we're going to do it, we have to do it fairly quickly.
So Commissioner Laura, would you like maybe, since we have till May, staff to kind of come back with some language about that in this, and we can approve it at a meeting in February?
Sounds good.
Or do you want it to go to affordable housing? Because I think we have a meeting in February of affordable housing to kind of okay or sign off or whatever on whatever language they can come up with, and then bring it to us at the end of February?
That'll be fine.
Okay, does that give you time still to meet the May deadline?
It should.
So can we, does that, instead of like trying to hash it out today,
I got you.
but I think everybody's supportive of trying to work the language in somewhere, and that gives us some time to make sure it's right before we submit it. Does that sound good?
Yes, ma'am.
Sounds great.
How do we do that in a motion? Table it? Okay.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to table it.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Chris?
All right, so that is, and you guys have to bear with me. I apologize, it was a long weekend. That was the consent. So the next item we moved up was 14A1, just kind of taking the two in order, which is my item on county attorney recruitment process. And I love Bill, and I'm so happy he's here. So this is not, as he knows, an effort to try to scoot him out the door, but he was very clear that his time is a little bit certain, and I know his wife was even more clear. So we want to keep her happy.
Did you see the list?
But, Bill will be leaving us in June, into June, July time
August, I
period
think.
somewhere.
The date that I've talked about is the end of August.
Okay, and so it's going to take us a little bit to find somebody to replace him, whether that's an internal or external candidate. And we need to figure out what the process is, because I would hope we could have some time where there was some overlap, just so there's continuity of issues and whatever's being worked on. So how do you guys want to go about that recruitment process? Do we want to hire an agency? I know that's worked for some of our department heads and other things. Do we want to try to do it ourselves? Do we want to just put postings out on some of the professional websites, or do we want to have staff come back with some prices on any of those? I mean, what are you guys feeling? I just figured we'd start the
Madam
discussion.
Chair, my suggestion would be, let's say, whatever process we choose, hiring an internal or external candidate, we want them to, are we gonna have them spend some time with Bill, a month or so, 6 weeks, or, I mean?
That's what I wanted to find out from you
I mean,
guys.
I would think that would be a good thing to do. I mean, the guy's got more institutional knowledge than everybody, probably than but Commissioner Fleischer here. But, I mean, I would think that we would want to go ahead and use a firm. I'm so far talking with the county administrator, I'm impressed with the firm that he's been using to find his department heads and stuff like that. My suggestion would be, get his opinion and maybe engage with that firm just to seek a new county attorney. And we just need to kind of set a time frame on what we're going to do, but I would think if we do hire internal, external, that person could, work with Bill for maybe a month if he's willing to do that. And when that point in time comes to kind of, show him around, show her around, and present the institutional knowledge, things, that stuff. But, sir, you seem pretty happy with the firm that you're using right now?
Yes, Commissioner Ehrman, we're using the firm that actually the county previously used to recruit Sean Liskey, SGR, Strategic Government Resources. They're a widely known firm. I've been very impressed with them. And I will tell you that the process has gone pretty smoothly. We're at the finalist stage now, scheduling interviews for the finalists, for the Assistant County Administrator, and then the Public Works Director will be following, and then the Natural Resources. So they've been very on point, on spot. Video interviews prior to that you can review. They've got a very, Mike can talk about that. There's just a difference in this process than the process that resulted in my hiring.
So that's my suggestion.
Yes.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Let's do that. Do you want to make a motion?
Commissioner Lohr had a
Who's others?
Madam Chair, have we investigated, like, the Treasure Coast Bar Association, Indian River County Bar Association, spread those words out first before we spend money on a firm? Could be someone local right here.
I think that you would get a qualified field of applicants by using advertisements in the Florida Bar, the Florida Association of County Attorneys. I guess our HR department utilizes Indeed and all of the other kind of big search firms. The last time we went through this with Mr. Reingold, I don't think we went with an outside agency. We just made sure that we did a broad advertising through Florida legal periodicals to attract a candidate. The county attorney's position in a small county would attract a lot of interested candidates because it's not Miami-Dade, Hillsborough, those type of areas, much more controlled. I don't want to say easier, but kind of
Issues are different.
the issues are different, well put, Madam Chairman. And I also remind the board that, you know, internally, I would certainly hope that you would consider internal applicants as well.
Absolutely.
Madam Chair, I would suggest initially, let's say in the next month, that the 5 of us write down some KSAs that we expect our attorney to have, some particular things that's going on nowadays versus a long time ago. And the 5 of us submit those to HR and direct HR to initiate the search for a month. And if that doesn't work, then we'll go to a firm. I think we have time for that.
So, yes, Commissioner Moss?
I was just going to ask, what would be the estimated cost for a search firm?
I want to believe it's about $40,000.
I'm sorry, what?
$40,000, and that's a nationwide search, but we would limit it to
I don't know.
Florida.
You know, I don't think we have a problem attracting applicants, and that won't be the issue, getting applications. The issue is filtering them or running them past a review. And I think that an outside firm dedicated to that would do a more thorough review. So I appreciate your suggestion, but it's just it's too important a position. There are only 2.
I can share the process that's currently used, and I do agree that the local attorney, like the leagues, the FACA, so that's going to generate interest. You know, I don't disagree with that at all. The process that they use, like we had 54 applicants for the assistant county administrator, 1 pulled out. They ranked them based on what we agreed upon with the job description and what we were looking for, the ideal candidate, into C, B, and A. C, they just were not qualified. B, they checked a lot of boxes and they had a lot of potentially had the ability to do the job. And then A, they clearly were solid. And then we went through, myself and, like Zito, we went through with the recruiter and then evaluated all of them. And then we selected, the 15 finalists or semifinalists. And then after that, they went out and those semifinalists had to do video interviews in addition to submitting, specific, things that we had requested to get. So they submitted in writing, then they do video interviews. And then we've since selected 6 semifinalists, or finalists now. So that's the process that they use. And then they do all the background checks, and then they do all that stuff, but I don't think
I think for $40,000, that's a bargain.
Well, I don't know if it would limit our cost, but I would almost insist that the attorney that we hire, internal would be a given, but that person be a practicing Florida attorney. I would want our attorney to be, adept at Florida law, special government stuff and things like that.
We'll achieve that goal if we did a bar search, the local search is suggested. We would probably get a jump start on localizing that, if that's the requirement. They're going to be members of the bar.
I think the one thing that you should consider here is that this person would work for you. They would be your employee. I don't know how hands-on you would want to be through that process as far as reviewing all of the resumes and the like, or leave it at the hands of a search firm. That would be your decision.
Well, I think a search firm would open up the fence, and at one point, we would get to the corral. as we have in the past, and have, you know, those the top 5 candidates that we were able to interview, as you were part of in past years, and others have. And I believe that's one of the best approaches. I think the county administrator just went through that. And I think that's appropriate, but I happen to, I like Sheriff's idea to at least give it a shot of getting a localized individual, or it doesn't have to be Indian River County. I mean, we can have somebody in the state of Florida. There are members of the Florida Bar. I'm sure that there is a second in command somewhere that wants to be a first in command, that doesn't see the opportunity where they are, and they're familiar with a small to medium county, and I believe that we can get the best of 2 worlds just by giving it a shot, even if it's a 4-week shot. I think the response will be rather swift.
I might add, Madam Chair, that with the benefits and the FRS, it would be very attractive.
So I'm just trying to summarize what I'm hearing from everybody, is that we want to make sure that we have advertising at the Florida Bar and FACA, and maybe whatever the equivalent is with the cities.
League of Cities, the Florida Bar local government section would also be alerted to something.
I think governmental experience is almost a must. Do we already have a job description? How old is the one that was used in the last recruitment process?
I don't know. It would have been 10 years ago when Mr. Reingold, or 11 years ago when Mr. Reingold was hired. When I came on, Will Collins was the attorney. He did not go through a vetting process. He was promoted from deputy to county attorney. Then when he retired, Mr. Plakowicz, Alan Plakowicz, was a candidate. We did not use a search firm at that time. And then, of course, when Dylan was hired, if memory serves me correctly, Commissioner Solari kind of took the lead role in making sure that the various entities received notification of the opening.
Why don't we do this? If everybody, because we don't really have an updated job description or a listing that we could put out immediately, it sounds like. We need to kind of update the one we have, add to it, and create something.
That would be fine.
So, and Commissioner Lohr had asked for people to submit their qualifications or what they want to see. So why don't we ask HR to dust off the old one? Everybody, as far as commissioners go, submit to Suzanne some qualities or requirements that we want to see by next, I don't know, can we do it like in the next week? So she can update that job description and we can approve it at the next meeting. And then we can go ahead and submit that to FAC and all those different organizations. In the meantime, maybe the administrator can get with the search firm and bring back a proposal so we can see what we might have gotten in the interim, but still move forward with possibly going with a search firm if we don't get anything. So we're not kind of stalling that process, because we would have to approve a contract to engage them anyway, and that would take some time. And that maybe we'll have that figured out by the end of February. Does that sound, which wouldn't back up it should keep us on track. I just want to keep us moving forward on track so we don't get to June 1st and are like, oh, what are we going to do? So does that make sense, Bill?
Yes, I think it would.
Okay. And John, that works for you guys, can get that done? And commissioners, we can just submit all that to Suzanne and let her compile and bring something back at the first meeting in February.
Yes, Madam Chair, and I think a useful tool to get there is to look at the 10-year-old document to see if there are changes to be needed. So can we have
Yes.
HR distribute us?
We'll ask HR to send us that, whatever they have existing from the last attorney search as far as job description and requirements, benefit packages,
They may
blah, blah,
want
blah.
to, they may also want to review our visioning plan that we did
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago and some of the other hot topics that are on the horizon.
Okay,
And we have a lot of those, and we'll just get with each of you that, that we've, with Public Works, with the Assistant County Administrator, like you did with the disposition, challenges, opportunities, and that's something that you can review and highlight if you want. We'll get with
Maybe we
Bill's
can
office,
just-
and you can say, oh, these are the other issues specific to the office, not
use
just
some of the
organization.
documents that you guys have already used for other searches. Okay, perfect. All right, Commissioners, well, it sounds like we have a general consensus on a path forward, which was my goal for today, so thank you on that, and we'll get the process started. With that, and I don't think we need a motion for any of that, just general consensus is good, right? Okay.
Yes.
All right, with that then, we'll move on to the next item that was moved up, which is 15B1, Amendment Number 4 to Landfill Gas Agreement with No Petro Eco District LLC. Sean, are you taking this?
Good morning, Commissioner. Sean Leesky, Utilities Director. Thanks for the opportunity to bring this back. I know it was tabled during the last meeting, and just a couple maybe quick housekeeping questions, maybe one for Bill. In the amendment, we mentioned something about shown in an attached drawing, and it was not necessarily in the record. Would you like me to kind of include that drawing in the record currently?
Yes, it should be.
I'm going to hand this out to all of you.
Thank you, Sean.
Oh, thanks, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leesky, do you also have one for their attorney?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Man, just made enough. Whew. And also, just one point, in the agenda item itself, we mentioned changing the commencement date, or termination date, I'm sorry, from March 31st to May 31st, and it should have been September 30th, 2024 to May 31st, 2025. Just wanted to make those 2 points of a real quick clarification. Again, this was tabled from the last meeting, and wanted to thank everybody who was involved with the negotiations. We sat down and we really got to work pretty quickly after the meeting. I think we actually met that Tuesday evening and sat down and really hashed through this with No Petro and their representatives, as well as their attorney and ours attorneys. I think I had an estimate from Ronnie that we maybe spent 40 to 50 hours on this over the last couple of weeks, trying to reach agreement. And we heard the concerns of the commissioners, and so we really worked through those. My understanding is one of the concerns that was raised was the definition of, so what do we call it, net receipts, or not net receipts, can't even think right now. Gross receipts, thank you. And so that definition has been changed to net proceeds. And it was there was some concern about the way the terminology was in the amendment, on the original agreement. And so the new amended agreement specifies what can be deducted from the gross income to reach those net proceeds. And so I feel that we have addressed that concern significantly in identifying those specific items that can be deducted prior to us getting the royalty payment. And so in addition, I think that we addressed one of the concerns around the 8 PSI and reduced that down to 4 PSI. And I feel that after we have reached, we still have some agreements to reach out on standard operating procedures associated with sections 3.1 and 3.2. And we actually included a specific date that we would get together and reach some agreement on what those specific standard operating procedures would be. And so I feel that we have addressed the majority of the concerns that were raised by the commission. there was some concern about would we be subsidizing the organization over the term of this contract, and I feel that, and John might speak to this as well, during those meetings, we met with their accountant and their staff, and they really did a good job of detailing over time kind of what expected kind of income and ratio was for the county, considering that you had to account for what would be routine operational costs we would incur either way. And so I think we feel very comfortable that over the term of the contract, there may be some good years, some bad years. I think in any kind of relationship, in any partnership, you have to assume some risk, and I think we are assuming some risk in this for sure. But over the term of the contract, when you look at even worst case scenario, they did a couple of scenarios. They did what they called the bank scenario, which is what they submitted to the bank for their approval, versus kind of a worst case scenario, which is we're kind of delayed in getting the gas or the landfill to produce the amount of gas that they may need to really take off and to get us that top tier of royalty. And so that worst case, even in that worst case, by the end of the 20-year term of the contract, we feel pretty confident that we will be in good standing. And certainly there's some things that the county will have to do. We have some things that we'll have to do to maintain and operate that landfill to ensure that we're meeting the needed gas. But I feel pretty confident in talking to Ron and Himanshu that we will be able to achieve those goals. So with that, I'll turn it over to John to see if he has anything he would like to add.
Just want to touch on the financials. I know the concerns were about the clarifications of expenses, the ambiguity as it relates to definitions, and then the overarching concern is not subsidizing. So I did have the opportunity to review with each of you the financial numbers in terms of based on a spreadsheet that they prepared that showed the scenarios. And what I can tell you to Sean's point about, and before I say this, I would like to, it wasn't just a statement in the meeting about we were relying on their bank numbers. We have it in writing that this is what the background to each of those numbers that I shared with you. It was that this case has been used to secure our conventional bank financing approved by the underwriters and third-party advisors. This is from their CFO, who's an agent of the company. So we had fair amount of reliance and was comfortable with the fact that, that not only did they say it, they actually put it in writing. So we have the first scenario is, what's it costing us now, right? And that's so we're putting out X number of dollars to run the landfill operation, okay? And then the second scenario is if we don't have a deal, is what we would, logically, we would want to try to use that resource to help offset our costs for the evaporator. And by doing that, the savings is over a 20-year period, approximately $7.5 million. And then the scenarios come in with the deal. So there's really two scenarios. I mean, they do have three. One, what they think is their ideal, their aggressive scenario, but then they have the bank scenario, and then the scenario that we presented them based on our current flow and our quantity and quality. And that is probably the most conservative scenario. So I'm going to focus on that because that's the only one. I mean, I think that is probably it is the most conservative scenario that we have, and I can compare it to the others. But in year one, under the conservative scenario, we are expected to potentially have an additional cost of about $1,500. Out of like $768,000, it's projected to be $769,539, so $1,539. Then every year subsequently, by virtue of the sharing and them taking on certain expenses and reducing our operating expenses, the county will realize a cost savings or cost avoidance. And that number continues to grow throughout the term of the agreement. But it also gets to the point because we are getting a royalty payment, and in this most conservative estimate, we actually recognize no royalty payment year one, reduced royalty payment in years 2, 3, 4, and then it starts picking up, because that's when we believe in 2030. While it's going to be commencement date's 2025, but we're saying 5 years, give us time to ramp up. So in that case, you're looking at the cost savings continuing to increase, and then at year 13, the cost savings or the royalty payment with our reduction of our operating expenses, the royalty payment actually exceeds our expenses, and we will projected to receive in that year like $68,000, and that amount continues to grow throughout the term of the agreement. So the net effect of the incremental savings is, in addition to the 7.5 million, if we just did our own, is an additional $8.6 million. This is just, and I get that, you know, if you all remember the spreadsheet. So I think, and then if you want, I can go into the scenario 2 where the net, or the impact would be potentially 10.7 compared to the, in addition to the 7.5 that we would do on our own. So I do feel you're either looking at year 12, year 13, if it's the more aggressive approach, I mentioned to this to each of you, that you're looking at year 5 or year 6, where you start seeing an actual check being cut to the county because the royalty payments exceed our operating expenses because they've been reduced by the cost avoidance because they're taking on a significant portion of those operating expenses. So with that being said, I would submit that I think we addressed the concerns that was raised in terms of, and we're more comfortable with the numbers. When we met, like, you know, to Sean's point, 4 hours the following day, met with our attorneys that afternoon, and then there was a dialogue going on back and forth throughout the week to get it there. So I do think staff can support this because I think this is a meritorious deal and it will yield, you know, benefits and accrued benefits both environmentally and fiscally to the county. And I'm recognizing with the most conservative estimate or projection scenario is that the first year maybe there is about $1,500 of additional expenses. That would be in 2025. And with that, I can return it to the board. And if Sean, is there anything you want to clarify? If I didn't, I think
Yeah, I think you did it well.
All right.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Lohr.
I keep hearing royalty payments. Is that on the 12%, 10%, or 8%?
So in the conservative estimate, they don't pick up 12% until year, I think it was year 5, wasn't it, Sean? We did the 4 years at 8% and then, or 10%, and then we did and actually the first year there's 0 royalty, and then year 2, 3, 4 would be at the 10%, and then going after it would be projected at 12%.
And that also depends on the quantity and the quality.
That is correct.
So I'm not comfortable using 12% on all of these projections when we might not get to 12%.
John, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, and Ron might speak to this too, but, you know, we have, over the last year, you know, and actually last probably 2 years, 2 to 3 years, they've been doing a lot of work at the landfill to accommodate this partnership. And probably over the last year, the quality of the gas has been and met the requirements of the contract. So I feel pretty confident that we can meet the quality requirements within the contract. The quantity is something that is still kind of up and down, and we haven't reached that top tier. The top tier is 1150 SCFM of dry gas. We haven't consistently met that. We were around 14 to 1500, maybe about, what was it, 6 months ago or so. And then some things caused it to drop off, and we had some blower problems that caused it to really drop off. But generally, we've been now on average around 1200 SCFM of wet gas, which only equates to probably around 1000 to 1100 of dry gas. So that's why those first several years we've kind of conservatively said we would expect to be closer to that 10%. But after about 4 or 5 years, because the landfill is going to continue to grow, we're going to have to continue to put in additional wells, that we would expect to be closer to that highest tier by year 4 or 5 relatively consistently, just because we're going to be, the landfill itself is going to be larger. We're probably going to be moving on to cell 3. Cell 2 will be closed, and we'll be able to produce more gas from the landfill.
So my concern is the projections that we're using are 12%. And if that hovers at 8 or 10, all of that timeline that you just mentioned will be skewed.
So the savings realized could be less, that's correct. I mean, the royalty payment, I mean, in the earlier years, at 12%, it's like 81,000, then it moves up to 168. It's accounting for additional quantity. So in the projection that we're using, 0 for year one, $36,000 of royalty payment for year two. And when I say we are, I'm talking about, you know, that their CFO prepared, one, the comparison based on our current, what we currently are doing, based on the meeting that we had, and Kristen raised this, and so Ron responded, and then they built this scenario around what we're currently doing, what we're currently producing. So that's why it ramps up much slower. 'Cause for example, in year 5, just by way of example, under their bank scenario, they expect the royalty to be $208,948. But in the conservative estimate, it's $97,292. So it is adjusting it.
And just one point of clarification too, was their bank case was developed based off of a report that we had done by SGS engineers, who was suggesting that the landfill over time would be able to continue to produce more and more gas. And so what they provided the bank was based off of that report. And again, I think to John's point, what we asked them to do was be a little bit more conservative than that, to account for what we're seeing currently versus kind of what that report expected. And so they went to the bank and got funding based off of this engineer's report that said, hey, the landfill's gonna continue to go up and produce more and more gas. And so their risk is minimized. And so I think that in the worst case scenario, there's certainly risk. And I mean, I think with anything, I mean, we are talking about a landfill, and Ron can probably attest to this more so than anybody, that, you know, landfill is a living, breathing, you know, I don't even know what you call it, but living, it's living and breathing, right? It's really hard to kind of manage it. And so, you know, are those numbers realistic? I think from a standpoint of the fact that the landfill is going to continue to expand and grow, we're in the process of completing cell 3. Cell 2 is probably only going to last about another year or so, 6 months to a year. So we're going to continue to get more and more gas from the landfill as we continue to expand. So yes, there is some risk associated with it, but I think when you look at, you know, professional engineers' reports that suggest that the production of that's going to continue to go up, we have to assume that it's going to continue to go up.
I have a couple questions. So what is our base expense currently? That's 700?
So basically, right now, it's about 768 projected out over 20 years with the increases. They used, which we would do the same, we used kind of an inflationary factor. And it would, over the 20-year periods, roughly, without getting into specifics, about $20 million over 20 years is what we're paying right now, we would pay.
Okay, so if we do nothing, we're going to have to pay over the 20-year term about $760 a year, which would accrue to $20 million.
It would go all the way out from 768 all the way up to about 1.4 million.
With inflation over the 20 years.
And some of that would be offset though. So I think operational costs, I think under scenario 2, when I was in scenario 2 base case, was that we have some upfront costs that we have, and then operationally, because we would be able to send gas to the evaporator. The evaporator is what's costing around $750,000 right now, because we have to purchase gas from the distribution system.
Right.
And so we would be having to operate a skid in order to get the landfill gas to the Heartland. And so the operations of that is expected to be roughly $400,000 or so on a year, obviously escalating cost on that as well. So there will be costs that we would have to operate the system, even to get the gas to Heartland.
Right.
And so that would be a routine operational cost over the life of the 20 years.
Okay. But it's somewhere with 760 up to 1.5 per year.
Yeah, and
over the
my
20 years.
scenario that I shared was based upon the difference between doing the deal and then us doing our own thing.
Right, I'm just trying to make sure I understand what you're saying. So we're starting here on the negative end of the spectrum because we are paying 760-ish, whatever. And what you're saying is over the course of the contract, the amount that we are paying, it offsets by whatever we're making to the point that that negative becomes less and less and less. till we get to zero, and then it flips to a positive where we're making money over the course of the 20 years.
Correct.
And I would just add to that, even before you get to the point where you're in the positive, you're actually saving money each year because you're shared expenses. So those incremental savings are also benefits to the district, as they seek other funding.
Right. And so we start in the negative, we're working our way to a positive, and in the meantime, as a landfill grows, as it will over time, I mean, it already has in the past 4 years, we're gonna be putting in more wells because the landfill is growing, not necessarily for this project, but putting in more wells anyway, which will allow us to extract more gas simply because the resource is becoming bigger,
Correct.
which we would have to do anyway with or without this project.
With or without them, right.
Which allows us to take advantage of those extra resources and escalate some of that capacity, is what you're saying.
Exactly. And I think if there were need to install additional wells specifically to address, getting additional gas for them, not necessarily just as the landfill continues to grow, you're going to have to continue to put in wells. That's
Right.
just what you have to do as you expand the landfill. You have to have a way to the gas to escape. And so we need to do that regardless. But if we needed to go in and install additional wells to get some additional gas out to accommodate the needs of their facility, there was an agreement, and even in our conversations, that cost would be shared. That it
Okay.
wouldn't be a cost that we would just bear as a landfill, that they would be willing to share in those costs.
Okay. I mean, that kind of answers my question. Yes, Commissioner Moss.
Oh, okay, no, I
No, go
didn't
ahead.
mean to cut you off. I just want to confirm, my discussion yesterday with the county administrator was that, and it's two-pronged. On the one hand, we're saving money, and then in addition to that, we'll be making money at some point. So we start saving in year 2, and we'll start generating income or making money, if you will, anytime between year 6 and year 13. Does that still hold?
Depending on the scenarios. The most aggressive scenario that they presented would yield the royalties would outstrip the expense or outpace the expenses, and we'd see a check based on their projections in year 6. That is correct, but we have looked at the bank scenario, that's year 12. The most conservative scenario is year 13. But you're still incrementally, even before you get to year 13, you will have accumulatively saved approximately $2.3 million.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman,
Thank you for that projection.
Madam Chair,
I'm sorry.
I still have some questions about
Yeah.
the exhibit, but we can get to that in a minute.
Your risk in this is that the scenarios that the county administrator presented are not part of the contract. They are simply No Petro's estimations of what is going to happen out there at the landfill. So they are not guarantees. I just wanted to make sure that you understood that that was the scenario. As far as my office's advice is concerned, you understand your risk.
Yes, and I think that in any contract like this, it's very hard to forecast what
You're correct.
it would be. So there's always an inherent risk, no matter what. That's correct. Yes, Commissioner Lohr.
Do we know the amount of the loan?
$20 million
I think it's
is what
20
we've heard.
million. I thought they had 20 million in private equity investors and then 20 million for the conventional loan for their funding.
So, just to make it clear to everyone, the county, if we go into this agreement, will be paying the interest on a $20 million loan.
So I'm not, and maybe it's kind of hard to, it's backed out because they use their expenses and they take the gross income and then they less out certain expenses. And in this case, one of the expenses that's projected to be less out, and it's actually a little bit more tighter than it was before from the previous ambiguous vague definition, is it's just the interest expense, and the principal payment is actually not part of that. So it's not the full debt service, and I think we all understand early on in debt service that you're paying more interest than you are principal, but the principal amount will not be less out of for the purposes of reducing the amount.
Okay, and can someone define the $700,000 a year management fee? What do we get for 700,000?
It's not necessarily what we get. I think that No Petro is part of a larger kind of corporate organization. And just like anything, I mean, for instance, I think utilities pays a management fee, if you will, to the general fund. This is similar where they have a board that oversees their overall operations. And so it's a management fee that they pay to their board to manage not just this facility, but the entire facility zone. And maybe Pete can allude to that a little bit more than I could, but it's a management fee that's paid to that overarching organization that is managing the No Petro facilities.
And just to add to that, it's capped at 700. It's projected by the end of the agreement to be less than $500,000, if I'm correct. And the reason why it's so large in the front end is that you're ramping up the operation. And then it goes down. And one of the things that the amendments do is we are assured now that it's limited to this facility and this project. The vagueness that was, well, how do we know we're not subsidizing another? That's gone. And with the definitions that were worked out between the county attorney's office, administration, and their attorney and their representatives.
So that's up to and including $14 million over the 20 years.
Well, I mean, I don't know
That's what it
I don't
is.
know the projection. Oh,
Let me get the calculator.
No, I understand that.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just saying, I don't know. I know the initial year, and then we capped it there, and it decreases every year. I don't know the full amount over the 20 years. We don't have the benefit of the individual line item amounts, while we did see them, because they shared them at one point, but they're proprietary. They kind of, well, that's why we capped it. So it couldn't be, and we limited it to directly this facility and our operation, or the project.
But again, the management fee is like a salary. I would be very surprised if a corporation would say, hey, that's okay, I'll take a lower salary this year and not go the full $700,000. There is nothing in the contract that requires them to reduce the management fee.
I would just point out that if we were to do this ourselves and have to employ people to do those jobs with the salary and benefits, it would probably be more than $700,000 on a yearly basis. And I think that that's something that is missing from this conversation is the definition of a public-private partnership. A public-private partnership is not necessarily the public part is us. The private part, they are able to do things faster, more efficient, assume the risk of financing. They're in a better position to do that and move projects forward that are beneficial to the public organization, which is us. And in exchange for that, they assume the risk. We help offset some of the expenses in the front end, because otherwise we would be incurring all of those in general. And we're able to move projects forward faster that then will help us make money or offset our ongoing operational expenses in the long term. So a public-private partnership is not simply a contractual arrangement on paper. It's also what are they doing that we would otherwise have to do ourselves. And the benefits of that is part of needs to be part of the discussion.
So we need to discuss that.
What,
Because today, we're here to extend the contract. Today, we're here to move forward, to continue on, to ensure that there's proper financing for the project that we have no control over. And in doing so, I just wanted to step back a little bit, some of the things we're hearing. And I was not impressed with the spreadsheet. Again, they're estimated numbers that can go many different directions. I reflected back, there was a company, we'll just say a company, that was to convert some vegetative matter into ethanol many years ago. I know none of you were here, but it was a great promise, a great mission, and they spent a lot of money. Ironically, this company is now on that property, and because that other company is gone, and that other company absorbed over $100 million from the Fed, and they're gone. And this was probably one of the most impressive things that was happening in recall time. Wow, we're going to be producing ethanol. Okay, that came and went. They had some proprietary knowledge and proprietary explanation that we were not able to. So we were presented with a concept and presented with a lot of colorful ideas, commitments, promises, projections, spreadsheets, how great this was going to be. And admittedly, we supported it. Not at first, but then they kept on working it, and I'm seeing the same pattern here. I want you to know that, this started many years ago, this project, and it was purported a whole lot different than it is today. I'll say it again. It was purported a whole lot different than it is today. Now, I could probably queue up something during one of the amendments that clearly showed that we're not being told everything, and we have an obligation to the public trust to ensure that we're engaging in the right thing. This is a 20-year commitment. I know you know that I am not in favor of this at all. I'm in favor of letting the contract go and wherever the cards fall, and then move forward. I'd like to play one of the amendment times what we did, because I'm very impressed with staff going through this, and we said we changed things. We didn't change anything. All we did was change the color of the appearance of what it is. I was the one who objected to gross, and agreed. George and Alon agreed to, yeah, you're right, it kind of, yeah, it's not, No, it's not gross. So we changed it. So we have some other additives. All we did was change the color of what we're seeing. It still is what it is. As in The Wizard of Oz, when that purple horse came out, and then it went to green, and then to yellow, then to orange. It's still a horse. We're still not gaining. What we're doing is, we're doing something that's ecologically sound, but it can be done. It can be done internally for a whole lot less without the concerns. And we were told that we're going to up the ante. And I want to say something else. When this project began, it was first presented, it was presented very narrowly. In other words, we were told the tip of the spear or the edge of the mound. We were not given what we now have about the finance package. We still don't know the finances, but we do know a lot of numbers that were placed on a spreadsheet. We do know a lot of factors, and then we see costs that we objected to. All we did was just chameleonize it. It's still there. It still exists. We're not gaining. We owe it to the public just to say, hey, wait a minute, stop, drop, and roll. We're being asked because a bank needs to know for this to happen. I heard this word, force majeure. This is not force majeure. This is a business decision and a relationship that did not work. Force majeure is an act of God, an act of nature, a typhoon, a hurricane, a flood. That's what force majeure is. This is not force majeure. This is a controllable. Got out of hand. I'll give you that, but it doesn't rise to the occasion of force majeure. We're now put in a position of having to place the public trust into and engaging in a response so that we can continue on. There's still no guarantee. Kim, did you find that video? With the indulgence, I'd just like to play this for a minute, because I think most of us were here. That's Vincent Burke and Hamachu Mehta.
They would make that request to us, we would evaluate.
We might
that,
want to start it over again,
And they would fund that expansion.
because a lot of the
So we've
important
given them
stuff
the ability to
just
do
got
that.
said. And I bring this up because we're saying that we're revisiting and amending. But the first part of the contract was different from now, very much so. And a lot of things were added and reconstituted. And I appreciate what staff did, but I don't think we're in any better position than we were then.
If they, as a developer, would like to add, say, 5 more gas wells, they would make that request to us, we would evaluate that, and they would fund that expansion. So we've given them the ability to do that. We also came up with, things sometimes break. And so they wanted some assurance that if something broke and they identify a landfill to maybe put in more gas wells. We haven't really had an.
It's very difficult to hear, sir.
It's really here, let me.
As a developer, would
Why
like
don't
to
you
add, say,
okay.
5 more gas wells.
Well-
So we've given them the ability.
I was just gonna
wanted the
say, can you
ability to
summarize
match
what
that.
it is that
The
that it
point of
says
this-
that you're trying
Go
to,
toward sort of emergency repairs or anything that, they find. And again, this is a project where the more gas we produce, the more revenue for them, more revenue for us. So they wanted that ability to be able to match some O&M budget. And so we've agreed to do that as well. Originally in the agreement in terms of payment, there was a sort of a 10% of gross receipts is from their gross receipts would be the revenue toward us. And what they've done is now that because they had some of these sort of 1150 SCFM quality criteria or quantity criteria, they've increased that to 12% gross receipts in order for us to get that. They realize that at some months we may have lower than that 1150. And although it wasn't in the original agreement, they've kind of agreed to, if our flows are between 800 and 1150 SCFM, once we get started and the project has commenced, that they would offer 9% of the gross receipts. And even if we're below 800 SCFM, when we get going, they've offered 5% of gross receipts. So there's still some revenue source coming up. But again, we put into the agreement the ability for them to help fund expansions, ability to make repairs on a quick basis. So the goal here is to continue to optimize the landfill so that we're producing as much as gas as possible. The other thing that they've done is this RNG project requires 45% methane content. And we're
Okay.
so
The
what,
point of discussion was that we were told that we went in, that was one of the amendments, we went in with 10%, and then now, the graciousness of the organization, they're gonna up it to 12%. So that's what we agreed upon, that it was going to be 12%, not, well, I don't know, if you have CFMs, you don't have the volume. And my point is that we were agreeing upon the information that was delivered from the podium. In the meantime, I don't know how much tearing apart the attorney did as our current attorney has done. It is very clear that there was stuff laid on here just to get it through. All right, don't worry about it. Don't look behind the curtain, another Wizard of Oz. I am very uncomfortable with this because at the end of the day, we heard we're going from 10 to 12, and we're not. That's not happening. And in addition,
10 to 12 of what? Like what's we're going from 10 to
the
12?
10% to 12% about the funding, about we're going to see revenue,
Royalty payment.
royalty
Okay.
payment.
Okay.
Did you hear revenue? We're not gonna see any revenue here. Come on, let's be honest. It's a good thing if we wanna talk about environmental, but there's no greater good as far as economics here. It just doesn't happen. And all of the clawbacks, like miscellaneous, I understand, that's the catch-all in managerial assignment. We had miscellaneous expenses. I realize you capped the miscellaneous expenses, but even at 25,000 incidentals, I mean, what is that? 25,000 times 20 years is $500,000. And that's the contract as it goes today. I mean, this all sounds, it sounds good when it's presented the way it's presented by the presenter, but when you look at it, it's not.
So can I maybe bring one point of clarification about what even Hamachu was mentioning in the clip that you just provided was, even the way it's written today is based off of the quantity and quality, we have an escalation of the percentage that we get for royalty. And I think he even alluded that in the clip, that the percentage, that 12% was that if we got above that 1,150, which is where it resides today. So I don't think you heard anything different in that clip than what's in the contract currently, which is there is a sliding scale of the percentage of royalty we receive based off of the quality of gas we receive, as well as the quantity of gas that is provided. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, and that's the way the contract currently reads today.
And I can go
And
back.
it's no different than what was stated in there, which you heard him say that at 800 or at 1150, we would get a higher percentage, and I think that's all he was saying in that clip.
So nothing about the royalties has changed from the clip that was shown till today? Keith, do you have something, you're lurking
Yeah.
around, do you have something you want to
Yeah.
say? Well, come on up and say it, let's just get this over
I
with.
think the purpose of the clip that Commissioner Erman wanted to bring up was that when they were presenting this information and said it was going from an increase of 10% gross receipts to 12, the reality is that it was going from 10% gross receipts to 12% net receipts. That was the purpose of the clip. That's the purpose of the clip, because the amendment changed the definition of gross receipts. The original contract, gross receipts actually meant gross receipts.
Okay, so,
But
and you
with
have a
the-
problem with that?
No,
Yes. you
I
do,
have no
okay.
problem. I'm just.
You have no problem with that, but
I'm-
you have a
I'm-
problem with that?
I'm just saying, I have no opinion personally. I'm just saying, trying to explain to how we got here and what the concern.
I'm trying to understand where we're going with this argument, like where we're going with this, and somebody is upset about it, so who is it and why?
Well, go ahead. It was presented as gross. Alon came up and said it was gross, and then when I refuted that, it became, yeah, you're right. George said, well, yeah, it's probably not gross, I mean, admittedly. And it appears we fixed it, but we didn't fix it because they're the same numbers.
So if it was gross and now it's net, what is your concern about that? Just that the definition or the word is
My
changed?
problem
or
is, that's how we got to the pathway. In other words, we started bad, it got a little better, and now it's the same thing. It's just got a different label on it.
Well, I guess
You shook your head, yes, it's the same thing.
but I don't understand.
It's the same thing.
Can I ask you a question, Commissioner
Yes.
Fletcher? I'm really trying, I hear what you're saying, but I'm not really understanding the concern, and I apologize, so let me ask a question. If you're saying that gross receipts is now changed to net receipts, but it's the same thing, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, are you concerned that that's impacting the royalty percentage? Are you concerned that that's impacting the overall expenses? What's the concern, and is that difference a huge monetary difference? And if so, do you see what I'm saying? I'm just trying to.
Yeah, and you're a business person, and we're not talking about in reference to the choice of words.
Okay.
You say potato, I say potato, that's one thing.
Right.
When it comes to gross and net, we're talking about two different worlds.
Right.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, we were impressed upon with gross, gross. Now it's net,
Okay.
and it is net.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm not saying that it didn't change, but just a little.
Right.
But
And so then the concern is because
Still, the
the
same
number,
impact is there.
that the
It
number
just
that
was
the
relabeled.
percentages are coming off of are then different? Because it's net versus gross?
No,
No.
no,
Okay.
no. But how we got there, how we traveled was gross, net. Big difference.
So,
And
okay,
that's
so
only
the,
one of the uncomfortable
so the
things I have
concern
of
is
this
then
contract.
that our attorney didn't catch that change and now this attorney has? Is that the concern?
You said it.
Can I clarify one thing real quick, too? So under Amendment 3, gross receipts, the terminology was gross receipts. But if you looked at the definition that was in the contract, it was really net. And so we
That's why I brought it out.
clarified in this amendment that it truly means net proceeds. And I think we clarified some of the ambiguity that was in the previous definition, that there was some ambiguity in the way that was worded. And so in the current amendment, we've clarified that, and we've specified what can be deducted from the gross to come to that net proceeds. And so I think there has been a significant change from Amendment 3 to what you're seeing in Amendment 4 with respect to clarifying what that definition truly means. And I agree that under Amendment 3, there was some ambiguity, and it wasn't real clear what could be deducted, and kind of left it open. And I think we've clarified that in the current amendment that says, no, these are the items that can be deducted to reach what that net proceeds is, to give us what our royalty would be based off of.
So I have a comment. At the last meeting, when we had this discussion, I very clearly asked the commissioners and the attorneys what it was that they had concerns about, so we could be very specific in trying to get the changes made timely to bring back to this meeting. And what was brought up is gross receipts, the percentages, and a few of those things, which it sounds like everybody got together and hammered out in a quick fashion. They got it, what was asked of them, done. And now we're here. But what I'm hearing today is that there's a fear that because the entire contract was put together and amended and overseen and reviewed by an attorney that is no longer here because he, retired, his office, the attorney's office is now being run by Mr. DeBrawl, and it's been assigned to a new attorney who has just come on board with us, that he has caught all these things that he didn't bring up at the last meeting as concerns that now require us to question the entirety of the contract. Is that kind of what your concern is, Commissioner Fleischer?
Yes.
So
Well done.
to that, I would say, first of all, we asked specifically so we could move this project forward one way or another last meeting. And Keith clearly agreed with the things that we asked to be updated and included. And No Petro clearly got together with staff who hashed all of this out and clarified the issues that we were very specific about asking. And Commissioner Moss had some specific things. I think we all did. And they worked together and got it done and got it back in a very timely fashion. So if there are further concerns, I think that the history here proves that everybody will get together and work those out and has been willing to get together and work those out. But I think what it also proves is what you kind of hear about other processes within this county. You're working, you think you're addressing what's being asked of you, and once you get those things addressed, boom, you're hit with something out of left field that nobody ever anticipated, and it further slows down the process, whether it's the building process, stormwater, utilities, now contract negotiations for a landfill gas project. So, it's a little frustrating to me that we asked for these things. This needs to either get done today or not get done. And because there's a new attorney that had some concerns about gross versus net receipts, and instead of picking up the phone and just asking the definition or how we got here, is now making a huge problem, it's very frustrating to me.
I
I
understand.
don't agree with that.
If I may, I understand your frustrations. There was a difference or a internal dispute in the contract language as far as gross receipts and net receipts. We changed the definition and the wording in the contract so that difference was made clear, so that there was no question about what constituted net receipts. I understand that some of the commissioners may not agree with some of the terms of the contract, 8%, 10%, 12%. They are set in the contract. As far as our office is concerned, and Mr. Jackman is concerned, the ambiguity has been resolved. That does, however, if individual commissioners do not like the specific terms of the contract, that's up to them. But as far as the direction that the county attorney's office and staff received, I think we were very clear in bringing this back to you as far as clearing up those problems. Again, if individual commissioners don't like the terms of the contract, that's something that our office can't really take care of at this point. It's already in the contract.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Dubreuil, how do you feel about this contract? I haven't had a chance to speak with you. You are the head county attorney.
The contract is a legally binding document. It sets forth the duties of the parties. It's got adequate consideration. As with any contract, as the chair has pointed out, there is risk. The numbers that have been presented by NoPetro are not guaranteed. They are estimates. So if you go ahead and approve this extension and they proceed to building this project, the risk is that we will not receive any of the royalties at the end because there may be things that come up. We don't know what those things may be. They don't know what those things may be. That's always been the risk involved in this contract. As far as it being legally binding and everything else, it's what it is. It's different than your normal contract that you're used to seeing where it's, we pay you X number of millions of dollars and you build us an extension onto 66th Avenue. That's what you're looking at. That's what you're used to looking at. This is different as far as how we arrive at the end of everything. Am I satisfied that it's an enforceable document? Yes, I am.
Well, let me see, let me back up. So, when this first came to the board, Commissioner Moss and I and Commissioner Laura weren't on the board yet. The board initially approved the first contract. Second and third were presented to us. I don't know if Commissioner Laura was on the third one, but those have all been approved. We've approved it every time. They're asking us to approve a fourth amendment. And we did, staff has done exactly what we had in the concerns last meeting. My biggest concern was this is a public-private partnership. There is a risk for any partnership, whether it's a marriage or whether it's a business partnership. There's a risk either way. So we had concerns pointed out by our assistant county attorney, and they're valid concerns. We asked staff, and because Sean sat right here and told us, he said, we have some questions on the gross receipts, and we have some questions on, well, who is responsible for what areas in this whole project? Who's gonna take care of the blower? Who's gonna do this? Who's gonna do that? We need to have those ironed out. I think they've done, which was all we asked of them in the last meeting, is to come back with a better definition on where we're going with gross receipts and who is responsible for what. And I think we've done that. I think the question we need to all ask ourselves is, no contract can cover anything. I don't care if it's a labor contract, a union contract, or a partnership contract, or a business contract. With all the contracts we do with the county, and we do a bunch of them, I don't think we can define every possibility. There is a risk in this. There is a risk, but it seems to me like a pretty good risk. And again, what we did 2 weeks ago, staff has done, and that's where we're at. I think we just need to decide whether we want to end up in this public-private partnership as a board. Do we want to continue to do it, or do we not? If we don't do it, this project fails, it goes by the wayside. We're flaring gas out of the landfill, and there'll probably be another company that comes and asks us to do something very similar. This is not something new. It's done in various places all over the United States, so I'm sure there'll be other ones. But Elaine and George and the rest of them have come to us with this. They have I feel, a greater risk than we do with regards to this project. I too had some questions on the SG&A and all that stuff that's in Exhibit E of the contract. From talking with the county administrator, talking with Sean, I think they've alleviated some of those. I've talked with the county attorney, the assistant county attorney. His position was basically, none of this is clear. Let's just not do this and let's get somebody else to come in here and do it. That was his position yesterday. I talked with our director of finance. She was basically saying what I'm saying. We either enter into the partnership and make it work, or we don't do it at all. But she said there's a possibility it could be a huge success. There's a possibility it could be a medium to moderate success where we're covering our cost and reducing some of our expenditures, but initially there probably will be some cost to it. So I think that's what we have to decide here. Are we going to do this partnership or are we not? Because I tell you, one thing I won't do is probably no matter what we do, is probably do a fifth amendment to this, like I said at the last meeting. I think 4 is enough. If this says, to keep doing revisions to these amendments would be silly, and it doesn't mean for good business if you can't work it out man to man or even on a handshake sometimes. So that's where kind of I'm at. Commissioner Fleischer, I understand your question on this, but I think I got to agree with Commissioner Adams a little bit to say, we ask staff to do what we're doing. We need to decide on what we have in front of us right now, and move forward or not move forward with this. So that's kind of where I'm at.
It's all right, you say that, Commissioner Ammon, all due respect, it's nice that you say that the Fourth Amendment will be the final, 4 is enough. We said that at 3, and I believe it was discussed at 2 about a decision about going forward. So I know at Amendment 3, we said this is the final one.
I agree.
I believe I heard that.
I would agree.
Okay, so, but now we're saying, well, the Fourth Amendment is the final one, and maybe the fifth one will also be the final one, okay? And then no more after the 6th. See, that's what we're doing. This has been a slippery slope since we got here, the chairman and myself got here. And then this thing kept evolving and investing and investing, and it moves forward. It's growing. And now we have spreadsheets that enumerate it all. And now those numbers are estimates. Those estimates are thoughts. If this process is so proven, we could do it ourselves, and there shouldn't be so many amendments and uncertainties. And the reason why we're here is for an extension, because there was a disagreement with a gas company and the applicant, the partner, and that is considered a force majeure. It's not, okay? There was another problem. And I remind everybody, well, none of these were here, but we were told, we also were told that we would be distributing the gas, that there would be, we have a vision of a distribution. That'll never happen. That's not going to happen. That gas is going elsewhere. It's being sold. That's fine. Whatever. We talked about our waste trucks and our county trucks. If we went into RNG, then we'd have a steady stream, a steady supply. Everybody's got to look at the evolution of how we got here. Not just, we're here today, let's do another amendment. And are we going to be able to do that on the 5th and 6th Amendment?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner.
I think it's a mockery.
if I can ask the administrator about the last paragraph on page 2, and it says, finally, the parties agreed to a provision to reconvene to further define, clarify, and finalize the division of responsibilities and operating procedures under sections 3.1 and 3.2. And this should shortly occur after groundbreaking, but no later than June of 2024. Does that mean the items in the exhibit will be more clear, more defined? Because, you know, I'm hearing that staff worked hard with them for 2 weeks and got this all clarified. The exhibit numbers are still not clearly defined. And I get they can't under certain circumstances. So what does that mean, reconvene a meeting? And what are we meeting about?
So, well, we obviously have two entities that are working on the project, and it was to develop the standard operating procedures and have an understanding the responsibilities on the county's part, the responsibilities on the No Petros part, or the district's part and No Petros part. So that's kind of, we agreed that wasn't an amendment necessary for the agreement because it wasn't materially changing the agreement. It was just us coming together, what we would do and meet and say, okay, well, here's what we're doing, this is what you're doing, and it's consistent with 3.1, 3.2. And the other thing I would just say is, well, while we don't have the specific amounts or figures related to the various expenses, where we have clarified and locked it down is listing the exact expenses that will be lessed out.
Okay. It seems like,
Didn't have that before.
right, it seems like that should have been done in the infancy of the first contract. Just a thought.
Go like this. We really didn't have that background.
Yes, gentlemen.
Go ahead, guys. So, we'll both approach. Hi, Alan Castro. Thank you all for having me. I'm a partner of the No Petro Eco District, along with George Herrera here at my left, who are taking this project forward. I want to just correct some things that I think are misunderstandings. When we started this project, when I came to this county in the year 2018, we had acquired a failed project from a large Swiss corporation that unfortunately misused a lot of federal money. And you and I both know this, Commissioner Fletcher, I get as angry about it as you do. I always do. I get angry just talking about it. We came in, we bought that project, and we had a vision of developing a series of projects. And part of many, I'm not going to go through that vision, but one of the attributes of that vision is every project we would attract sort of the best and brightest partners to this county, to this little county, which is not geographically little, but it's a little county from a population perspective, right? And the first project, we brought Atlas, world-class, organic soils producer. They lecture at, the best universities on this topic, and we now have 100,000 or more tons a year of organic soil in Indian River County. And I learned a lot about soil. I'm not a soil guy, but I learned a lot about soil through that. And it was an interesting project, and I'm really proud we made that happen. In the second project, we saw that the county had a problem with the leachate, and we brought a world-class company, the Heartland Company here. And I'll always remember this. This was my point to say all this. Commissioner Fletcher once said in a board meeting, and I can't recall what date it was, but it was a happy moment for me. He said, you pointed me out and you said, you've been a good thing for this county. And I was on cloud nine the rest of that day. I genuinely was. I was on cloud nine the rest of that day. Went home, my wife even asked me, what happened? He said, one of the county commissioners said I was a good thing for the county. That's all I really want to be, And she knew that, and I said, and so the third project, it's run into some problems. COVID is what it is. It hit all of us, but it made the project go slower. The landfill got full of leachate. Holy crap, how are we going to deal with that? We all bound together with the county. We figured it out, but we got dealt some hits, right? Unlike a big corporation in Switzerland, right, which you kind of alluded, this is kind of more of that. We're guys that are refinancing our houses when that sort of thing happens, which is factual. That's not a theoretical. We've done that to stay in this, to trudge through and get to where we are, right? We got company behind us, but we're not a big Swiss multinational. So COVID has put us out there, and we buckled down and we doubled down, and we're doing this, and we're already about almost nearing $10 million spent on this project. So we've raised private equity money, as your county administrator properly represented. Half of that equity money has already been deployed. Our money, we've had to securitize it with our houses, our kids' college futures, everything. So we're in. We're not some corporate guys, right? So I want to make that difference right there. We're an animal with different spots. Okay, we're not a big multinational. This is a very personal project to us, very personal. And I wanted to just take a moment. I've never used this overhead. Is it easy? Because I just brought like three slides, and they're old slides. Thank you. How do you do it? Just thank you. And I'm only going to keep the first page up for record. These are from IRC, Indian River County Board Meeting, May 2021. Okay, and I just grabbed a few of this. This is a part of the vision that we explained, we had shared with the board at the time, two of which are still here. The vision was, you take a small landfill, take a small landfill, which was sending untreated leachate, one of the most toxic liquid substances known to man, down to the wastewater treatment plant to get mixed with all the other water, and was sending its untreated landfill gas to a flare and flaring it and just burning it voluntarily. That's it. So we said, what about this? What about a vision where we take landfill gas, we power an RNG facility, which will one day feed a fleet of trucks or buses, and then we take the extra leachate, the extra landfill gas, we power an evaporator. And that evaporator, so you got the little landfill that could. You can almost write a children's book from it, right? It's beautiful. Now, we said back then, hey, this is going to take about 1,500 to 1,600 standard cubic feet per minute of gas. Your landfill is not there, unfortunately. Your landfill, according to back then in that board meeting, your landfill, according to the best engineers in the landfill space in the United States, said that, and you should be hitting that around the late 2020s, right? So we're not going to be able to achieve this utopian little landfill that could right out the gate. You can go back and find the recordings. I probably didn't use the little landfill that could, but we did make clear that the landfill is not going to hit all of this right out the gate. But these are steps. And then we made one small change. The only change is that we said, well, rather than sending that extra landfill gas, once the landfill grows, once the landfill has more volumes, instead of sending that landfill gas back to the evaporator, let's just generate more transport fuel. The county will make more royalties, and our facility will buy the commercial natural gas to run the evaporator. It's a better economic decision for all parties, right? We all win. Now, that's what's happened. The fleet of buses and the fleet of trucks, Commissioner Fletcher, comes when the vision, which is not on this, the vision is that we would one day, right on the back of this, put a refueling station. Now, Petro owns and operates the biggest fleet of refueling stations for compressed natural gas in Florida. And much like I did with Atlas, with the organic soil, much like I did with Heartland with the evaporator, I bought the best in Florida, not just best in the US, best in Florida. And we do have the vision, but these are building blocks of having a refueling station selling this landfill gas in Florida. We've taken the hits along the way. We've done what I think you would want an entrepreneurial partner of a county to do, which is be resourceful and find a way through the storm. And we're seeing it through. And we'll see it through. I just hoped and still hope that we would see it through with you at our side and not, suddenly saying the deal terms changed. And one last thing, and I want to get out of the way and let George talk. The only thing that changed, how do I turn that off? The only thing that changed is that when we started this project, it was a power project. And we put in gross receipts, and it was around 10%. And then the county said, why can't you do an RNG project? And the RNG project, I can understand why. The revenue is 3 times higher. You make 3 times more revenue selling transport fuel than you do selling electricity. I said, man, if we do that, it's going to be hard to get financing. It's going to be hard because it's a little landfill. So we worked together, and I said also, RNG projects typically pay about 3%, 4% gross receipts. If you look at the other projects, that's what they pay. That's what they pay, the 3 or 4% gross receipt. Even up in the other project in Florida, it's 3 or 4% gross receipts. We said, let's keep it 10 to 12%, but help us. We're going to have to cover the debt. We're going to have to cover some financing. This is a hard project. And we bound together, and we found a way, and we changed it together, but very much in front of Dylan, very much in meetings with Jason Brown. This was very much open, discussed, let's find a way to keep the county incented. And if you look at that video that was put up in Himanshi from that board meeting, he said some other very important things. He said something like, there's money to be put aside during operations where this project would co-invest with the county to make improvements to the landfill. And there's a staggered 10 and 12%, so if the quality goes up, they make more money, we make more money. That's the idea. It's always been there. That hasn't changed, Commissioner Fletcher. That hasn't changed. The only thing that changed is that COVID slowed us down, liquid in the well slowed us down, and unfortunately, the build out of the pipeline to all of the island with your local gas utility did make them a bit more bureaucratic and slow. That's all.
Thank you for your comments, and I meant what I said in the past. You personally, I like you. We've had very lengthy conversations about everything here and everything else in the great planet. Have we not?
Yes, we have.
Countless discussions. Personally, I like you. If I don't like the contract, I don't like the contract. And I hope that you don't take it personal. Because I meant what I said then, I meant what I said now, and I'll be clear. I don't need any words. I don't even need alphabet soup. I mean, I'm clear. I'm committed to what I feel and say, but by the same token, you're a good man. That doesn't mean we have a good contract. That doesn't mean that we're not placing the citizens on the hook. And if they get placed on a hook, I don't want it on a treble hook, because they're very tough to get out.
George?
Commissioners, good morning. George Herrera, CEO for No Petro Energy. Commissioners, so first addressing your point, Commissioner Flesher, from a constituent perspective, the project, the contract, the way everything has been structured has been done incredibly deliberately and in the best interest of all taxpayers. In no scenario would the taxpayers in any case subsidize any expense of our project. Quite the opposite. No, Petro is investing $40 million into this county. And I'll take you back to try to piggyback on some of Alon's words. I started No Petro Energy in 2007. I was a practicing lawyer, but I always dreamed of building a company that would change the world positively. Within 6 months of practicing law, I started No Petro because I came across the use of natural gas, became incredibly curious. As a 27-year-old kid, I spent the next 14 years, I guess if we're at 14 years now, building No Petro, where we've expanded across the state, where we've got 17 facilities. But you touched on something which is trust. Our company, myself, we were able to persuade government partners across the state, major cities and counties, just like Indian River, 12 years ago, that they could trust us, that we're gonna execute, that we're always gonna do what's in the best interest of our partner, always. And when we look at Indian River County and what we've done over the last 24 months since we've been involved as a partner, we've lived up to that, and there's no other standard which we would ever live up to. It's always excellence and trust. And with the county, while the county was improving its landfill operations, removing the leachate, No Petro was making investments. And that, from a company our size, we're a mid-sized company, not a startup, but we are a mid-sized company. And we were taking risk along with the county when the county was producing 500 standard cubic feet per minute. Over the last 18 months, our team has met weekly, if not bi-weekly, worst case scenario, with the county staff, the administration, keeping them appraised of every activity that we're doing, keeping each other appraised of the progress that each one is making. In June, when the county had just achieved basically the production flow that we needed, we issued a purchase order for $8 million. I had to go to my board, just like your administration goes to you, and get approval for that. Because I was so confident in working with your staff and your administration. I've worked with them across the state of Florida for the last 15 years. They're first rate, they're committed, they work on the weekends, and to get a project done. This project is a game changer for the country. The fact that you have seen this through since Alon started here in 2019, that you saw this vision through, and you're here now where we break ground in 3 weeks. We're waiting for our permits. We're ready to go. The project will be operational in January of next year. We're 3.5 months late because of events that we couldn't control, but we still moved forward. We still made investments. We still met weekly with your staff. We've got permits filed as of August of last year. So you don't have to have any doubts. Rest assured, Commissioner Flesher, that you will be cutting a ribbon in 12 months. Rest assured. And from a financial perspective, again, given the dynamics of the landfill, we were a growing landfill that never cared about gas generation. You guys started to care because you saw the big picture. You can't flare gas. It's terrible for the environment. That's the alternative for the next 36 months. And then ultimately, from a financial perspective, everything has always been represented exactly the way it is from a dollar perspective. The definitions, that was bad wording from the lawyers. I wasn't involved. Our company was not involved. But the bottom line was the same. And that is No Petro will subsidize the county. We're going to pay for that natural gas during the early years, and we're going to pay royalties. It just so happens that once you get to a certain point, not only are we paying the county's gas costs, but we're also giving them royalties. So it's a remarkable deal. And the fact that we've got a track record for the last 15 years in the state of Florida is all that you need to hang your hat on and say, you know what? I trust this company. They're going to execute. And when you talk to your staff, when you talk to Sean, when you talk to Himanshu, when you talk to Mr. John, who's got to meet us over the last 2 months, I am confident they're going to echo the same sentiment. And I trust I'm here to answer any questions that you have, commissioners, but we couldn't be more committed. This project will win national awards. And I'm calling that now because of the progression, the evolution of leachate is horrible for your local citizens. Once that water starts to drain, that counts as underground pollution, nuisance with smell. You guys went head on and addressed it. So I applaud the commission. So I'm here to answer any questions. If there's any doubts, I'm here to answer any questions. Please, Mr. Fletcher, you've expressed a few today.
Well, I don't have a question. I just want to point out the word ambiguity, because we said we clarified all of that. Okay, you just said that you're a middle ground company, correct? I'm not putting words in it.
A middle cap, yeah, technically mid-cap company financially, yes.
Okay. Alon says, we take out our mortgages for this, suggesting a small company. Our county administrator says, you're a large national company. You want to talk about ambiguity, okay? I've just pointed it out.
Perception.
This, when you hear these mixed signals,
Hold on, George.
and I'm not going off on a different tangent, other than you hear this and you say, well, what is it? Is it a small company? Is it a medium company? Is it a large national company?
Commissioner Fletcher, so just to clarify, myself and my partner Craig Donkovic, we are a small company. We are the seedling. We brought in, this is our third partner to bring into Indian River County. The first one was Atlas, the organic soil.
Yes,
The second was Heartland Company, corporate. And then we brought in NoPetro. Now, NoPetro is a different company. Now, we're partnered together on this project. We're both investors and owners. NoPetro is a Florida-wide company. They have the largest fleet of compressed natural gas stations in Florida and are also launching operations overseas, but they're not across the entire United States. They're a Florida-wide, they span the entire state of Florida. They're a reasonably sizable company by Florida state standards, and you should be proud as a Floridian, because you've been here now several, partially a Floridian, to have companies like this. But they're a strong Florida company. There's no corporations here, and so they're not the ones refinancing homes. I'm the entrepreneur committed to Indian River County, these projects that's partnered in doing it. It's different entities.
So are we dealing with you, or are we dealing with
We're both in this.
NoPetro?
Correct, no
So we're
Petro,
dealing with kind of both?
Correct.
Well, we're all investors.
Okay.
in this, yeah.
just no Petro is the contracted party. But if there's any other questions, I'd love to be able to answer
We
them.
can't, they're not mutually, they're not exclusive. This is your partnership to our partnership.
Correct. No Petro Eco District with Indian River County.
Of your 17 other entities, are any of them identical to this?
No, because there's only one other facility in Florida, but the answer is no. We distribute renewable natural gas across the state, but we'll be building the facility with Symbiont, which has built 50 facilities across the country.
Commissioners?
And the project is fully bonded, so from a performance bond and payment bond perspective, performance guarantee, so from an execution perspective, there's no concern.
That might have been a source of confusion. The company that's brought in, the construction company, the procurement and construction, is a national company that has done over 50 of these exact kinds of projects. So that might have been the confusion where, whoa, I thought we were dealing with a national company. So the national construction company, a strong state-based, gas distributor operator.
Sorry, if I may.
Yes.
You mentioned bonding. Who is the surety, who's the obligee on the bond?
So-
And who does the bond support?
The bond supports NoPetro's EPC contract, which is a design-build contract with Symbiont, which is the construction company that's building the project. We have a fully wrapped $32 million guaranteed maximum price contract with performance guarantees, all wrapped in, and with a substantial completion date of January 15th of 2020.
And the name of this corporation is?
Symbiont.
Symbiont.
Symbiont, like a symbiont.
Symbiont has promised you and the bonding company that if they don't build the project, the bonding company will step in and finish the contract.
Absolutely. That was a condition of our EPC contract. Certainly, and I've shared those contracts with your staff.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions of the Eco District or No Petro or staff or each other or anybody else? Yes, Commissioner Moss.
I just have one question. How or why did that happen that, and I guess this dates back to 2019, before some of us were here, and originally it was gross receipts. How did that become net without any discussion? And I understand that, our legal department perhaps should have advised us, but it was gross, and it was still stated as gross. I'm not engaging in semantics here, but in actuality, it became net. And there was no discussion. I mean, why didn't you, approach us and clarify everything at that time, rather than, slipping it through, so to speak?
So Commissioner,
That concerns me, because it's true that part of this is that we are going to agree to reconvene and further discuss and clarify, and I don't know how we got off track in the first place.
So on the latter point, in terms of reconvene, all that we need now to work with the county here over the next 4 months is just a standard operating procedure memo. We have these across the state of Florida with different partners like Central Florida Transit Authority, and it's just memorializing procedures such as No Petro employees will have access to the landfill from 9 to 8 p.m. So very simple, kind of non-contractual, non-material elements are all that's remaining in this SOP memo that was referenced by Sean and John earlier. And on your prior comment, it's always been represented as net receipts in front of the commission in terms of financially what we were reflecting. The reality is that the term that was used was inherited from that first agreement when the county was only producing very, very low volumes of gas, and they were trying to do a power plant, which is very, very different. And so for whatever reason, before our time, the lawyers did not clarify that. But that ultimately financially was always represented the way it is, which simply the revenue minus the actual expenses that it costs to run the facility. And this is a very common method across the country for infrastructure projects such as this. And ultimately, the county does not run a financial risk as a result of that. It just puts both parties aligned in wanting the best thing for the facility, because annually, the county will audit our books openly and transparently. And we operate in that same. We have done that, again, for the last 15 years, where we pay royalties to different clients across the state of Florida.
Thank you.
I'll just add, because I was around when we made these changes from the power project to a transport fuel project, a renewable natural gas project. And we had, I would say, without being exaggerative, 100 hours of discussion with county attorney, county administrator, and county landfill team over those changes. I don't recall if that level of detail was brought to the board, but I can attest, I just don't remember, but I can attest it was, and I've got lots of emails back and forth on public record. It was red line back and forth. I mean, it was very openly discussed as to, that. So it wasn't something that was, I don't know. It was certainly something that we felt was very much open as we walked through it. I don't know if, those that were with us would agree. We took it forward and had lots and lots and lots of discussion over it.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, when you said, we didn't get to that level,
What do you mean?
okay?
No, I just don't recall when they presented it here. I might have not even been, but usually I stay working with your
You're talking
administration.
about, we didn't talk about net and gross, we didn't get involved with that kind of,
No, what we said,
minuscule thing.
Commissioner Fletcher, what we said is the RNG project is going to be a far more expensive of a project. We told your county administration, we're going to have to take on debt to do that big of a lift. It's a much bigger CapEx project as well.
we weren't privy to that, okay? So I guess that's on our end. But George,
Okay.
I know you're not practicing, but you're an attorney, right? Business attorney?
I haven't practiced law in 15
But-
years.
But you did the whole thing.
I did.
You're an attorney,
I did, yes.
non-practicing attorney.
Correct.
Don't you think that gross and net thing was not a minuscule item, that it was kind of large?
So Commissioner Flesher, when the reality is, it should have been written with a different word, but the economics that were represented were always the same. So it was always presented in a genuine, transparent way in terms of the projections that were reflected. And again, from a financial perspective, when you look at the actual project and the economic returns for the county, they're compelling on its face, right? When you're having a company such as No Petro that's going to be subsidizing the county's landfill operations by paying for the natural gas that you need to pay for regardless to power the evaporator, plus we're paying royalties. It's a true partnership. It's a true partnership like we have across with other municipalities and counties.
Well done, but that wasn't, this is not a yeoman's error. This is not a scrivener's error. This is, the difference between the two terms is overwhelming.
But Commissioner, respectfully, if your administration and staff is comfortable with the way it's defined and what the economic results are, it seems like that meets the test, right? In terms of, it's been negotiated, the returns have been reflected.
No, they were sold that it was going to be gross. I contend that. And then we were informed that and again, from the beginning of the conversation, I know you guys weren't here when we first started this, but it was, now we're getting this. In the beginning, we got this. All we did, we get the tip of the spear. It was sharp and it was moving forward. That's all we know.
So Commissioner, the economics are still the same. It was just a definition that was clarified to remove any ambiguity that was felt by the county attorney's office. And so, end result
I
is
just
still the
think it was
same.
given another coat of paint.
Okay, yes, yes, John.
I just want to, in the gross receipts definition that preceded this, gross
Miss-
receipts.
can we
this
put
is
this up
Amendment
so we can
3.
see it?
You can put it up, sure. And we're probably going to read the same thing.
Get your attorney up.
Let's see if we're,
Turned it off. Would you mind
Don't
putting it back
know.
on?
Sure.
so it notes, I'll read it, and he's going to put it up, means the gross receipts received by the company or its subsidiaries during the term from the sale of the RNG facility, including any environmental attributes, net of any brokerage fees, transportation costs, sales taxes, and other expenses incurred directly or indirectly by the company and its subsidiaries in connection with such sales from the RNG facility. So again, I wasn't here when this happened, but I'm just looking at this definition. It does include in there the net component, and it identifies some expenses. And what we did, based on the direction of the board, is that we worked with No Petro to tighten up what were those expenses. So what's so from an audit standpoint, previously it was indirectly or directly. Now we know it's directly, and we have them locked down with the Exhibit E. I would just submit that to the board. I mean, but to Mr. George's point, that's the definition that was previously adopted, the gross receipt. It did net out.
I'm sorry,
So
what
that
date
definition-
is this?
This was Amendment 3.
If I may
Okay,
add to that?
Amendment
just
2.
hold on.
I'm sorry, Amendment 2.
Amendment 2.
Just-
Yes.
2.
Hold on. What you just read was from the Second Amendment.
Correct.
The definition of gross receipts in the Second Amendment included the net concept. Okay, and and now that we're looking at the Fourth Amendment, how has that definition changed?
I would submit the
I'll put it up for
definition that we have now is more precise, and it limits it to the concerns about it's not ambiguous, and it limits it to this facility, our project only.
Okay,
So it's direct, it's not the indirect. I mean, it's very specific.
but the net,
Keith and Pete did a good job, and I think Keith drafted these ones that are presented today for approval in Amendment Number 4.
but the net attribute is still in there as it has been since the Second Amendment.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
correct. Madam Chair,
Yes,
Commissioners, if I could very briefly go through it. So I have all four of them here, including the original agreement, Amendment 1, 2, and 3. The original agreement does use the term several times, gross receipts. At no point did anybody identify a definition for that. So we were all working collectively in a partnership without a definition of that term, but understanding what it meant. Fast forward, Amendment 1 does not address any definitions. Amendment 1 is totally irrelevant to any discussion today because there's nothing in it. It's basically one page, and I'm happy to put it up, but it shows nothing. Amendment 2 is the first time the term gross receipts is used whatsoever, and that's what I just had up. The execution date on that is May of 2021, and that's the definition that you saw. And if we can just have that available again, I want to lay it up there for you. So that's May 18th, 2021. And again, there's where you see it. And as was just stated by
Oh,
the
you gotta
county
move it down a
administrator-
little bit if you
I'm
want us
sorry,
to
I'll
see
bring
the
it down a little bit.
definition.
Thank you.
There you
thank
go.
Okay, and what I want to lay right next to it, just below it, is the current definition of net proceeds. Let me try to come up just a little bit so you can see both of them at the same time. That'll be a little tight. Okay, there we go. As you can see, and as Mr. Takanis just alluded to, not only does this tighten up the term gross receipts, because even from the inception, it means gross receipts received net of, and you take out all of your expenses. That's all the way from Amendment 2, that continues in Amendment 3. Whoop, sorry, didn't mean to slide that. And so now we fast forward to a term, net proceeds, which again uses that exact leading, means the gross receipts, less the itemized expenses. Even better, in this version, Amendment 4, the term itemized expenses has never been defined either, ever. Because we were all working under the same partnership, the idea that there would be gross receipts, cost, and you would have a net. So instead, in working with your staff, and again, want to be very complimentary of staff, particularly Amanju, who is on the other side of the world and participated, we came to a term for itemized expense. And as you've all seen with our exhibit, it specifically delineates what those are. So if anything, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, in 2019, you have a wonderful idea, but you don't have all of the terms. Roughly 2 years later, you have a complete change in the approach, no longer electricity, but gas. And we have a wonderful idea how that can be utilized for huge environmental benefits, but also be monetized in a partnership. Savings to the county, costs avoided that you will incur by lessening that burden. We move forward as we found more things, and we get to a point now where we have a very tight set of definitions that clearly identify what those proceeds are and what the costs are that can be deducted. Your gross, your expenses, your net. It is virtually a perfect model for auditors, financial institutions, the public, anybody to be able to follow. And going back to the revenues and percentages, again, even in Amendment 2, it was 12%, as was alluded, and based on the exact same flow rates, quite frankly, that we're talking about now. Those haven't changed. So there's been no suggestion from our side. In fact, we tried to do exactly what you asked us to do. We came in because we needed an extension, and we provided that. We met immediately following. We've kept it tight. There's nothing to hide here. We've never tried to. In fact, I think we've provided more transparency than has ever been provided at any point in the last almost 5 years. And again, I want to thank John, I want to thank Bill, the county attorney's office, all of staff, because it was a lot of work. This is not a simplistic process, but we are here as your partners for the next several years, next several decades, to make the quality of life better in Indian River County. Because we have something that we can provide to the county, and we think it's a win for everybody. I haven't heard anybody say that the county's going to lose money. We're not. We're here. Nobody has identified where you'd lose money.
Thank you.
If I may put in my last word.
Okay.
I would like to thank Mr. Jackman for his assistance on this matter. To Commissioner Moss's matter and the paragraph 2 of the whereas clauses, it is not unusual at all for the parties to reconvene to determine standard operating procedures. This is in every single one of our road contracts. It's called the pre-construction meeting, where everybody gets together. All the subcontractors, the county, the general contractor gets together and hashes out exactly what is going to be done. My last point is the bonding. This is the first time that I've heard about the bonding. If they have a bond to build this plant will be built. Plain and simple. That's what the purpose of the bond is. Same with one of our road contracts. The bonding company says in our road contract, If the general contractor does not build the road, I will. That's the same benefit that we are going to get, albeit third party, that if No Petro doesn't build this plant, or I should say, their contractor does not build this plant, the surety will step in and finish it. And I thank the chair for her patience in this matter.
Thank you. All right, commissioners, we have thoroughly discussed this issue. And, you know, I really don't know how much more we can discuss. So are there any further questions? If not, what is y'all's pleasure?
Madam Chairman, with the fact that I'm willing to enter into a public-private partnership with a company that's almost going to invest $40 million in this county and create jobs. And I have one question. Georgia, do we collect, does the state collect tax on LP sales?
There is a sales tax with respect to the gas that we distribute into the pipeline, yes.
My point was going to be is that we would get part of that tax through the gas tax, I would assume. I think our risk is fairly minimal on this. I think the risk is all in this company. Basically, they want to sell the gas that we're going to provide, so they need us to provide the gas. And I think that is the prudent thing and the most business-like thing to do with regards to this. I don't want to see a Fifth Amendment at all. So with that, Madam Chairman, I'll be glad to accept staff's recommendation.
All right, I'll second that. Any further discussion? Seeing none, there is a motion and a second for staff.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
You know, my concern is, now, first of all, it's refreshing to hear about the bonding, and that came at the 11th hour. In fact, I don't know, John, if you knew that, you know.
Commissioner, I knew that in June of 2023, they executed a notice to proceed with Symbiont Science Engineering Consulting, but I didn't know that they had a performance bond.
Right, and that does make a difference. However, the exhibit, and I appreciate Mr. Sweeney saying that it was clarified, but the fact is, it's not exactly clarified on the expenses. So that, to me, is a bit of a problem. If the company has 17 other entities, one would think that financing wouldn't be a problem. We've heard great things about the companies that they do. 2 weeks ago, we were here talking about the bank, and no bonding was brought up. Very important. I disagree with Commissioner Ehrman, who says there's little risk in this. There's major risk in this. So that's where I'm at.
All right, thank you. All right, there is a motion by Commissioner Fletcher, by Commissioner Ehrman for staff recommendation with a second by myself. Anybody from the public? Yes, sir, come on up, please state your name and address for the record.
Tom Sullivan, 4187 West 16th Square. I'm just curious, the term risk was used, and I'm wondering what that meant, maybe Bill. Does that mean if they default, that the county would have to pick up the note?
No.
Okay, so what exactly, in terms of the monetary risk, do we have?
The risk is that we won't make the percentage on the royalties at the top tier. The risk is what percentage will we make?
That's the entire risk?
That's the entire risk.
And these guys are on the hook for $40 million?
$40 million, yes, sir.
I don't know about the scales of justice here, but it seems like, and I say this all the time, all great endeavors involve risk. I mean, we wouldn't have a guy in the moon. The Japanese are going crazy because they just landed a ship. There are a lot of risk. I just think from what and I've listened to this on TV last week, and I was here during the original meetings, and I think it's a great idea, but I thought the risk was $20 million, what you were talking about. When we're talking about just the profit risk, which is going to be over a 20-year period, minimal for what the benefit of this science will yield. I really, and I understand wordage and contracts, but I think Bill and Keith have done a great job, and I read the thing like 5 times. I mean, everything is very specific, and, to me, it's a no-brainer, but that's just one citizen's opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public? All right, seeing none, commissioners, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Commissioner Lohr, were you? I couldn't hear. Opposed. All right, so the motion carries 3-2. And with that, we will take a 10-minute recess.
Tomorrow. Yeah.
Right, we are going to, is everybody ready to call the meeting back to order? We'll call the meeting back to order. Next item is public hearings. Our first public hearing is 10A1, county-initiated request to amend the 5-year capital improvement program and the capital improvement elements of the comprehensive plan for the period of fiscal year 2023-24 through 27-28. This is legislative in nature. Chris, you're up.
Good morning. I want to apologize for earlier on the item. I missed the question when I was running here, so that's why you had a little bit of a wonky response, but just wanted to clarify that. For this item, we are asking to actually continue to the next meeting, which would be February 6th. We need a little bit more time to get everything ready. I did advertise for this item and thought it would be completed by today's date. However, we had some extenuating circumstances and also some other figures that we were waiting on. So it will be ready for February 6th.
Okay, Bill, so in order to do that, do we need to open the public hearing and then continue it, or not open it at all, or?
Open the public hearing and continue it to the time certain, time and date certain.
Okay. All right, so at this time, I'll open the public hearing. And do we need a motion to continue?
No,
Anybody
if
from the
there's
public?
Anybody from the public that
right,
wants
thank you.
to talk about the issue, fine. If not, then just continue it to the time certain.
Okay, thank you, I'm sorry.
That's good.
Anybody from the public wishing to speak on this item? All right, seeing none,
Madam Chair,
yes.
at this time, I'd like to make motion to continue at staff's request for additional information.
Thank you, Commissioner Flesher. I will second that. Do we need to mention the date?
Sure.
And that'll be at the next meeting, February 6th.
Perfect. Thank you so much, and thank you for helping to keep me on track today. I need all the help I can get. Any questions? Commissioners, all in favor of the continuance?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. With that, we'll move on to the public hearing on biosolids moratorium extension.
Very good.
Who's handling this?
I'll take this one. Thank you, Madam
Okay.
Chairman. Back in 2018, the county enacted a moratorium from the spreading of Class B biosolids on properties west of, in the western part of the county. These biosolids were coming from other counties. They were in contract with the larger landowners west of town that used the biosolids as a type of fertilizer. After we learned of this, we started to do some testing. We and other agencies started to do some testing after algal blooms were found in Blue Cypress Lake. So we went ahead and enacted a moratorium prohibiting the spreading of biosolids on these areas. We have continued that moratorium ever since. This ordinance simply extends the moratorium for another year. I'd ask that the chair open the public hearing, take any comment on the matter, and staff's recommendation is to approve the extension of the moratorium.
Thank you so much. At this time, I'll open the public hearing. Anybody from the public wishing to speak on this item, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Moss.
I just had a question. Why are we doing this annually? Can we do it for a longer term? I understand that initially, that we were allowing it in for a temporary period of time so that we could see how things settled out, so to speak. But I'm certain, we must know that by now. So could we do it, should we do it for a longer term, or just, make it permanent? I mean, why, is there a reason that it's a one-year term?
The reason that it was a one-year term is that it's a preferred length of time for moratoriums. The reason that we haven't made it permanent is because there are certain state regulations that we do not want to conflict with. I think the state was looking at it historically through this last 4 or 5 years, whether they wanted to conduct some sort of statewide preemption or things like that. So that's why we have been carrying it from year to year.
Basically, Commissioner Moss, and I think we went over this last year when we did this, if we change it from a moratorium, which is typically a year long, it becomes a prohibition. We are legislatively preempted from having a prohibition. However, because we had a moratorium in place when that legislative statute was passed, we are in a gray area where we can continue to, I mean, it sounds ridiculous, I don't disagree with you, but we can continue to extend the moratorium and skirt that preemption or prohibition, but once we change it from a moratorium to something more permanent, then we are not allowed to do it and the whole thing would go away,
Okay, so moratoriums are always 1 year?
typically.
Typically.
All right, well,
Typically 1 year or
Madam
less.
Chair,
okay,
Yes.
thank you.
motion to move to extend the moratorium for the year 2024, 2025.
I'll second that.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Fleischer with a second by Commissioner Moss. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Commissioner Ehrman absent. All right, the next item is 10A3, ordinance of Indian River County, Florida, amending the zoning ordinance and the accompanying zoning map for +2 acres from RS6 Single Family Residential District to RMH8 Residential Mobile Home District. This is a quasi judicial item. So we will go through my quasi judicial checklist. All right, commissioners, have you had, you're asked to disclose any ex parte communications, site visits, or independent investigations? Commissioner?
None that I'm aware of.
Have not that I'm aware of as well.
Have not.
All right, and then we will confirm that the commissioners have an open mind and are able to base their decisions on the evidence presented and applicable law.
Can and will.
Can and will.
Can and will.
All right, at this point, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing and then swear everybody in. Yes, Bill?
Yes.
Okay. Open the public hearing. Anybody that wishes to speak on this item, whether a party or audience member, we're asked the clerk to swear you in, all witnesses.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
All right, with that, we'll start with a presentation by county staff. Welcome.
Good morning. For the record, I'm Cindy Thurman, Senior Planner, and for your consideration is a rezoning request for School Street Apartments, LLC, from RS to RMH8. I can do it. The subject 2-acre property is located on the north side of 45th Street, just east of 58th Avenue in the Gifford area. This property is an area that consists of single-family subdivisions, large lot mobile home development with industrial uses to the south. The purpose of this request is to secure the zoning necessary to develop the site with uses permitted in the RMH8 zoning classification. The applicant owns approximately 14.5 acres adjacent to the property and would like to add the subject property to the overall site for redevelopment. As you can see here in the light brown or beige, the existing zoning is RS6, and it dips down into the middle of the existing darker brown RMH8 zoning designation. The subject RS6 property is surrounded by the RMH8 property. A look at the future land use map shows that the entire area is M2, which is our medium residential 2, which allows up to 10 units per acre. Take a closer look at the existing zoning. The RS6 is a single-family zoning district. Uses are designated for residential, provides for single-family housing opportunities, ensures adequate public facilities to meet the needs of residents. And a comparison here quickly of the existing RS6 zoning and the requested RMH zoning, you can see there are similarities. They do have the same front, rear, and side setbacks. And then here, the proposed zoning, RMH8 is a mobile home district. Uses are also designated for residential, provide opportunities for developing mobile home subdivisions, ensures adequate public facilities. And then again, they're both consistent with the existing M2 future land use designation, which is intended to provide areas for development of residential uses with densities up to 10 units per acre. And the requested RMH8 zoning classification will limit the density to 8 units, even though it does allow it up to 10. But we're not asking for a future land use designation change because the requested RMH8 zoning district is consistent with the existing M2 future land use designation. So when we look at rezoning, we do have to analyze everything consistent with the Chapter 902.12, Section 3, and these are items A through K. So is it in conflict with any applicable portion of the land development regulations? No conflicts have been identified. Is it consistent with the elements of the comprehensive plan and those elements that are applicable? The ones listed here, Policy 1.13 and Policy 1.43, we have found them consistent. Is it consistent with the existing proposed land use? Yes, I just went over that. It is consistent with the existing M2, and again, no future land use amendment change is proposed as part of this request. Is it in compliance with the adopted county thoroughfare plan? The main access for this site is from 45th Street. This property actually dead ends at the end of 54th, which comes off of 45th Street, sorry. All roadway segments within the area influence would operate at an AM acceptable level of service under the proposed RMH8 zoning, and I'll go over a little bit more about that in a second. The subject changed mod conditions exist that warranted amendment. Again, this site is abutted on 3 sides by the RMH8 zoning, and the applicant owns adjacent property and would like to add this parcel for redevelopment. And then again, would this development of this property by this rezoning decrease the level of service established for general services such as sanitary sewer, potable water, solid waste, and draining? And what this does is this forces us to look at the highest and most tense use. And I've done an evaluation here pursuant to Section 910.07 of the Land Development Regulations. And what it tells us here is the most intense under the existing zoning is 12 single-family units. And under the proposed RRMH8, the most intense would be 16 mobile home units. So it's really only a difference of 4 units. Moving on to item H, should result in a significant adverse impacts to the natural environment. No adverse impacts are anticipated due to the rezoning of this site. Would this result in an orderly, logical development pattern? This will provide for a logical and orderly development pattern consistent with the comprehensive plan. Will it be in conflict with the public interest? No, we believe that it will be in harmony with the purpose and intent of land development regulations. And will there be any other matters that may be deemed appropriate in review and consideration of the proposed amendments, such as police protection, fire? We believe that all concurrency, including mandate facilities, have adequate capacity to accommodate the most intense use under the proposed zoning. So in conclusion, the requested RMH zoning district is compatible with the surrounding area, consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the county's comprehensive plan, is consistent with the county's land development regulation, is deemed suitable for the RMH zoning to further meet the needs of residents with a diverse and varied housing supply, and is already established in the area. This request can be supported by staff. The Planning and Zoning Board recommended unanimous approval at their December 14th, 2023 meeting, and the recommendation was that the Board of County Commissioners approve this request to rezone the subject property from RS6 to RMH residential mobile home. And if you have any questions, I'm available.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions of staff? My only comment is that this is one of the clearest, this is one of the most clear-cut, sensical rezonings that we've ever been asked to do. So if there's no questions by the commissioners, is there a presentation by the applicant?
Jeff Barquette with Schulke, Biddle and Stoddard, 1717 Indian River Boulevard. No, ma'am. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, I'm not going to answer them.
All right, thank you.
Leave it on comment. That's great.
Is there any input, anybody from the public that wishes to speak on this item? If so, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. All right, seeing none, any final presentations from staff or the applicant? No? Okay, is all the documents and evidence been given to the clerk? Fantastic. With that, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, questions,
Madam Chair,
comments?
motion
Yes.
to approve.
Thank you. I will second that. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Commissioner Ehrman absent.
Thank you very
I was
much.
compelled by Jeff's speech.
All right, that brings us to our next item, which is a request to speak by Mr. Gilliams regarding funding for septic to sewer utilities at 490 US Highway 1. As a reminder to commissioners, our public discussion items, we do not take action on. If somebody would like to bring it back as an actionable item in the future, you're welcome to do so, and the discussion is limited to 3 minutes. Mr. Gilliams, welcome.
Thank you, Chairman. For the record, Damian Gilliams, 490 US Highway 1, Sebastian, Florida. We're a family, local business in the community at that location for 32 years. First of all, I want to thank County Administrator John for helping us move this along quickly and getting us on the agenda with his administrative assistant and the commission, the help of the direction of our commissioners that we had spoken to. And also your staff, Sean, in utilities. He's been awesome helping us get through this situation as well. I'm going to try to make this short and sweet. It's a dilemma that we're incurring. We always wanted to hook up to the county utilities from 2015. It's always our intent. We went for grant money with the city. We got grant money from the city. We had to return it. We got a letter, and I put it on the top of your packet, saying we were not part of the septic to sewer phase 1. We hired an engineer back then, Randy Mosby. He did all our drawings. We expended $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 between that and surveys. Fast forward, we're having problems with our drain field. It's not that we couldn't fix it. We tried to fix it. The health department didn't want to give us permits. We understand we're close to the river. We want to be environmentalists. There's no bigger environmentalist in the North County than Damian Gilliams. We need help. It's that simple. The line is not within the ordinance, and we're asking that there's about 75 to 100 feet, give or take, in picking up that cost, and then we can take it from there. That only will bring it close to our property within the ordinance of 50 feet. And it's somewhere between $7,500 to $10,000, maybe $12,000. That's what's quoted by one of the contractors. We still have it out to bid. Aside from that, that's basically it. We lost that money, the grant money. We had to give it back, so we're going to incur thousands and thousands of dollars to make this happen. And we've been a good business for the community. We've been there 32 years, and we want to do the right thing. So with that, I'm going to end it there and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Gilliams. If a commissioner wants to bring this back for an actionable item, we can do that. We have the documents that you've submitted, and we'll go from there.
Do I need to get with the county commissioner and put it on the agenda? How does that work?
If a commissioner wants to put it on the agenda, they will get with you and they will submit an agenda item in the future.
Okay, so if I don't hear from any commissioner within a period of time, what kind of
You're
time?
always welcome to reach back out to the office with
Okay.
whatever questions you may have. Commissioner Fletcher?
And this needs to go to the clerk as well, copy of this.
Yes, we'll submit a copy of this.
I
sheet.
gave
think
them,
she has one.
yeah,
Yep.
I gave them a copy. We have drawings, engineering
Okay.
drawings. If you would like to see the engineering drawings, we brought a copy. I'll be happy to seal, delivered. Our permits, Jesse Rowland's been great in expediting everything. We're just waiting from the DEP to issue their permit. We applied with the city for the right-of-way permit. We're ready to move on this to make it happen. We want to keep everybody happy.
Thank you so much.
So then I'm going to leave here with following up. Is that,
Well, the public discussion item is to make all the commissioners aware
Aware
of
of
what
it?
your concerns are, so, and then
okay,
that's how it works.
perfect. Thank
All
you
right,
very much.
thank you so
for your-
much.
Thank you for your time.
Uh-huh.
All right.
All right, with that, we'll move on to county administrator matters. 11A, joint meeting with the city of Fellsmere and Indian River County.
Yes, Madam Chair and members of the commission, staff met with and had some telephone conversations with the city of Fellsmere, and we've agreed to 3 general issues. We originally agreed to 2, and then the Fellsmere City Council asked that the stormwater be added, and it's really to discuss transportation. You see the specific projects as well as utilities, understanding, the utility an overview of where we are from a capacity as well as the ability to serve both, the Corrigan Ranch, then just west of 95, south of 512, the Tropical Village Estate. So those are the topics for the proposed joint city-county meeting. And I'll also share that we have had communications with the Indian River Shores. At this time, there's no issues that are pending where they feel the need to meet, so.
Is this the order that that's going to be in? Or
If you have a different order you would like it in, I will be more than glad to
I would
change that.
suggest just swapping utilities and transportation, because I think utilities and stormwater are, not that these aren't all important, but I think utilities is very pressing considering the legislation that's coming up and some other things, and then obviously with the conversations that have been being had with the Water Control District and the city, I think those two, we definitely need to have robust conversations on both of those items. And then the transportation, which we also need to talk about, I think, if that gets abbreviated a bit, the utilities and stormwater is the most important.
Yeah, and I just that, for the transportation, and you all will see it, but it combined with the Fellsmere City Council as a whole, the consultant presentation regarding the 512 cross-sections and access management plan, you'll see it at the MPO, but this will be an opportunity, rather than just the one representative, but the collective bodies together to talk about it.
Okay, and then this will be at Fellsmere City Hall in their auditorium?
That is correct. I'm sorry.
Mr. DeVral.
Should we extend an invitation to Fellsmere Water Control District or no?
Well, they are aware that this will be happening. I think the city of Fellsmere has set a joint meeting with the Water Control District, so it's probably to keep it on track, better to have the 2 of us meet, and then if there's a follow-up meeting that needs to be had with the Water Control District, that would probably be more timely.
You may recall, we did that in the past around 2010, and it did not bear a tremendous fruit. So I concur that perhaps maybe we have to meet head-on and discuss all of our intentions. In addition, Madam Chair, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think utilities comes to the forefront, because we got a timeline.
We got a timeline, and there's capacity issues, and we gotta all be on the same page on that, I would agree with you. All right, yes, Commissioner Moss, I'm
I
sorry.
just had a question. In terms of the format, will we be receiving backup materials? This is very specific, and I think more specific than the previous workshops. Or are we relying on the presentation?
I think the presentation, and then, and largely the city's going to take the lead on the discussion matters. It was a much longer, lengthier, very narrow list, and we kind of try to keep the larger items for the discussion purposes.
And Commissioner Moss, one of the things I will just throw in is that the point of this first meeting, like with Sebastian and Vero Beach, was kind of to get us all thinking about the global issues that we're going to have to face in the future. And the intention was to then have follow-up meetings, whether it's annually or biannually, or semi-annually, I guess is the right word, to maybe delve into some of these on a more specific nature. But I think the goal is kind of to make us all aware of what each other's concerns are in the first meeting, and then that'll set agendas for future meetings, where I would see us drilling down, maybe having a future meeting specific to utilities or specific to stormwater.
I think it's a great agenda. I just wanted to be properly prepared.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. It can be a lot. All right,
It is January 30th, 1 PM at the Old School Auditorium.
okay. Does anybody want anything added or deleted, or we're good with the topics? We don't need a motion, you're just bringing it, okay.
Consensus.
All right, and with that,
Madam Chair?
yes, Commissioner.
I know we stated regarding the proclamation for Ernie James Greer that we would be doing it later on if he showed up. He had a scheduling conflict, it did show, but with your indulgence, I'd like to reschedule that for the next meeting, and we'll direct staff to place it on the agenda as well.
Fantastic. We'll get that done and get him scheduled for his presentation at the next meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nothing further.
Wonderful. All right, with that, if there's nothing further for the good of the order, we stand adjourned.